I wish I could say that I loved Superman, but I also wouldn't go as far as to say that I hated it. I'll just start by getting the negatives out of the way. My biggest gripe with this movie is the amount of jokes and absurdity. I know that's what I should expect from James Gunn, and that's what's worked for me in his other comic book movies, but I really thought that wouldn't be the case for a Superman movie. There's just moments where it felt way too goofy, and it took away from the moments that were supposed to be emotional and serious. There's also scenes that are just there for a joke that we've already seen in Marvel movies. I saw this in a sold out theater, and there were moments where a joke would happen and the theater was just dead silent. Maybe my whole theater was dead inside like me, I don't really know. It's also a preference for me to get a more serious tone in comic book movies, so my nitpick might actually be a positive for you. I also just found that there was too much going on and there were too many plot points instead of one centralized story. There's also just so many moments in this movie that felt like they were too much of James Gunn's style, and I typically love his style of writing and filmmaking, but there were tropes and music choices that just didn't work for me in this particular movie. I would also say that the CGI is a bit distracting at times, and I could have used a little bit less of it, but then again, I don't know how you would make a movie like this without it. So those are my main nitpicks, and I think those mainly came out because of how I feel about Superman as a character and how I want his movies to be, but there's a lot that really worked in this one. So with all of those nitpicks out of the way, let me tell you what worked for me in James Gunn's Superman. David Cornsweet was born to play this character. The way he carries himself throughout this movie and shows his positive attitude is everything I want from Superman. James Gunn clearly understands the character and showed us his humanity in a really interesting way. This movie really checks off all the boxes of what you want out of Superman, and there's something in this movie that I won't spoil involving Superman's backstory that I found quite clever and made for an interesting take on the character. Watching this iteration of Superman made me really excited to see him for years to come. Rachel Brosnahan nails the role of Lois Lane, playing a reporter that will do anything to get her story. The chemistry between her and Cornsweet is very apparent on screen, and I think she was the perfect casting. But I think the character that got the best casting and writing overall was Lex Luthor. Nicholas Hoult by far plays the best Lex Luthor we've ever gotten. I've never seen a more spiteful villain than this. This dude felt like Elon Musk for a minute. Nicholas Hoult really plays into the jealousy and rage that we expect from Lex Luthor. I don't think I've ever seen a more narcissistic, egotistical version of Lex Luthor, and I have to give James Gunn props for really writing this character in the way that you would expect him to be from the comics. I mentioned earlier that this movie leans into the absurdity, and while at times that didn't work for me, and just felt like James Gunn humor, a lot of the comic book absurdity did work. This movie feels so much like a comic book and throws us straight into this DC universe that's already established and doesn't have to be built up. This is the most crazy sci-fi Superman movie we've gotten, and it makes for a really fun action adventure. The fight scenes and cinematography are done in a really neat and creative way that follows Superman through the skies and feels incredibly exhilarating. Of all the Superman movies, this might have some of the best fight scenes and action that we've seen of any of the Superman movies, and that's a high bar considering Man of Steel had some great fight scenes. Overall, I think this movie did its job in creating a fun Superman adventure that embodies the character and his beliefs. It did make me invested in this DC universe, and it made me want to see more of these characters and explore the rest of this world. However, I think I would prefer that someone else write and direct the next Superman movie now that everything has been established. I just think James Gunn does so much better with characters he can make his own in a comedic environment. Again, it's just my preference for a movie like this not to be a giant joke fest. To me, James Gunn's style just works so much better for a group of characters like the Guardians of the Galaxy or the Suicide Squad. Although I think Man of Steel is a better movie than this, I think this was a better representation of the character. So I still lean toward liking this movie, just not as much as I thought I would. Maybe I'll feel different after my second viewing, and maybe you'll have a different opinion. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below if you have seen it or you plan on going to see it. I'm curious to hear what you think. So yeah, bye!